What I'd like to do in this demo is to save the configuration files on this router to the TFTP server that's running on this server here. TFTP is a UDP protocol, port 69, that we can use to save configuration files from our routers, as well as the iOS if we want to. Configuration files are real handy if something happens to this router and we get a new one and we have our config file saved. All we have to do is upload it, assuming that the hardware is the same or very similar. Upload the configuration files and do a no shot on the interfaces, and then we're in business again. This device here, this server, has in the services here, if we go to TFTP, I've deleted all of the other files that were on it so that we can see what happens, and you can see the TFTP services on. So the first thing that we need to do is to go to our router and save our configuration files. And it's enable show start. So we have the startup configuration file, has a DHCP server configured on it, and some IP addresses here and other things. So let's copy start. Let's see, copy start to TFTP. I guess I have to give the whole command, huh? The address or name of the remote host, and that was 192.168.2.3, and let's call it router config. If I don't put anything in here, it's going to put the default name, which are really very long, and when you do them, if you're going to use them, I would recommend you use copy and paste. So the destination file, writing the startup config took 3 seconds to get there, and if we go to our server here and go to TFTP, our router config file is now available on this server. We've got to remove it. It would be there that we could actually open it with Notepad or whatever we wanted to do. So to see both ways, so we've saved the config file. Let's do away with, let's see, right start. We're going to write erase. Write erase, which is going to remove the configuration files. Confirm yes, and let's show start. It's not present. We're still okay if we did that by mistake because it's still the running config. Show run. All the configurations are still in the running config, so we could then save the running config if we had made a mistake. But what I'm going to do is to reload. So we're going to compress, self-compressing the image. The pound signs, when you see that, is the images are compressed, and it is decompressing the image. You can see we have this setup or this startup configuration file, and when we get this, it says, "Oop, there is no startup config." I'm going to say no in this case. The interface that connects, and you can see I got a bunch of reds here connecting to the router. So what we want to do is to bring our configuration back. In order to do that, we've got to configure this interface so that it can connect to this server, the one that has stored our configuration file. That's Fast Ethernet 00, and again, we don't have anything. We can do a show run. If I could type show run, if I were in enable mode, show run, and we have nothing there. And we're going to do a show start, and it's not present. So let's go into config T and go to interface Fast Ethernet 0/0 IP address 192.168.2.1 255.255.255.0, the subnet mask, and then we'll give it a no shut command. So it is up. What I want to check, and we're green here, I've turned off PortFast, which is a separate topic on this switch so that the interface does come up immediately. So let's go. The first thing we probably want to do, I didn't type in correctly, is to ping 192.168.2.3 and see if we can communicate with it. We get our one failure here with a dot, and then the 4 exclamation points, the success, the dot, while it's doing the ARC lookups. So now let's see if we can copy TFTP, and then where are we going to copy it to? Let's try the startup config. So the IP address is 192.168.2.3. The source file name is router config, I believe. The destination that we're going to is the startup config file. So it says 1071, so let's show, let's see if we got it. Show start, and when our startup config file, sure enough, everything is there that we would expect to be there. But when we go to the show run, nothing's there except the one that we can configure. So we could either restart the router, or we could copy. We normally copy run start, the running configuration file, to the startup configuration file. In this case, we're going to copy start run. The destination is the running file. So now if we'll show run, we have all of our configurations. If we go back and now let's just do a quick show an IP interface brief. Then our serial is still down. It has the address, so we could go into the config T and config T, and then interface serial 1/0. Give it the no shut command, and then we should be back to where we were. So look at how we, so to finally change state to up, how we can copy our configuration file to a TFTP server and then recover it if for some reason we need to get it back to the router that we were running. And you can use the TFTP server to copy your flash if you want to make backups of your iOS or your configuration files. So we can use, since we can route and get from location to location, we can use a centralized TFTP server UDP protocol that's running on a workstation in order to store configuration files and the operating systems.